Everybody ask me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so. Everybody ask me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so. Everybody ask me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so. I know. Everybody ask me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so. I know. Everybody ask me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so. I know. Everybody ask me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so. I know.
Hi guys, this is the ViperStealth and welcome to another video. This time it is a fully optimized skill build. I've been using my skill build since the latest update, and if you know me, you know I'm all about this min-max skill build. What I've done in this latest skill build is I've tuned it even more just to get even more juice out of it. So if you enjoy using this destructive explosive loadout, check out what I've done here. If you do enjoy this, give me a thumbs up to let me know that you're appreciating the video, and share it with someone that you think might also enjoy sending enemies cartwheeling through the air. So let's get straight into it. What I've got my build is the good old-fashioned 4-piece hardwired. I've got the BTSU gloves and the Alps backpack that has skilled and destructive. I'm going to cover all of this later on. Let's cover the guns very quickly first. So what I've got on the sidearm is recharged, and recharged, it says while equipped, skills deployed at full armor have 25% charges. So the 25% charges is for the hive, so it's a nice little boost. I go from 16 to 18, which is good. The secondary, I have the MG5. This is completely personal choice. You can go for the send-off shotgun, which gives you perfect rooted. I personally use the MG5 a lot more than I use the send-off shotgun, but you can use send-off if you want a little bit more damage. This has rooted, so while equipped and in cover, all skilled damage and healing is increased by 25% for 10 seconds. So 25% extra explosive damage, lovely, we'll take that. And the primary, I use an ACR. Feel free to use whichever gun you like. It's not too important as it is only PvE, and all builds are, they work in PvE, but I personally like the ACR, and I've got in rhythm on that. So while equipped, enemy kills have 5% chance to refresh active skill cooldowns. So in rhythm works very nicely with the skilled and the 4-piece hardwired that we've got here. Now a couple of changes. The one change that I could do here is if you are using the specialization that is the destructive specialization, you can use this Disseros special pistol because it gives you in rhythm and Wesley, so it gives you 2 benefits instead of just 1. So I'd need to change my ACR assault rifle there to make sure that it doesn't have in rhythm and it has recharged instead, because then you could just get another talent. Wesley is, I don't know, it's good, but I guess it's not every day that you're covered in foam, so that's why I'm not too fussed about it, but if you want to, you can do that. Next up is the hardwired 4-piece. Now this isn't really rocket surgery in terms of optimizing this, but quite simply all you want to do is you want to get as many yellows in your build as possible. I used to have 16. The reason why you want 16 yellows or 15 yellows or even more if you want is the BTSU gloves. Now if you've got a skill build and you're not using the BTSU gloves, you've got to have a damn good reason as to why you're not, because it just makes sense to use this. The biggest reason is energy infusion. So whenever you apply status effect, your gloves will come infused with that effect for 60 seconds. So when your gloves are infused, you get 10% more skill damage for every yellow you have in your build. So we've got 15 yellows here, so that's 150% extra skill damage. So that's a lot of damage that we're talking here. So that's why we've got 15 yellow attributes. On the mask, what you really want to do is get decent skill haste and also a really high damage to elites. We've got 55% here, that's enough for me. That 55% damage to elites not only works for your gun, it also works for your skills. So your hive and your seekers, that also gets affected by that. Next up is the vest. So the vest, what I've done now that's different from my last video is my last video on this build I used to have 1,000 skill power. I realized that I didn't need to go that high. Notice I've still got 3,000 skill power. I'll tell you what I did in a second, but the best piece, make sure you've got hard hitting, because that benefits more damage for your Seekers and your Hive against those elites. And I've also put on a 30% total armor. Now, what I've done that's a big difference since my last build is I've gone to the crafting bench and I've crafted new pieces until they drop decent base values. So for example, I crafted a mask that had 28% skill haste, which was higher than I had before, and then I put the 55% damage to elites onto it. Same here, I went to the vest and I crafted one that had decent enough skill power, so 500 is decent enough, and it had armor on it, which was really important. I wanted the vest to have armor on it, and I slapped 30% onto it. And then lastly, just as an example, I went to the crafting bench and I crafted loads and loads of holsters until one rolled out that 600 skill power. I was happy with that, and now I put armor on kill on this. I'll cover this later on, but I've sacrificed 49% skill haste I used to have on this for armor on kill. But like I said, cover that in a second. And then lastly, what we've got is the knees for the hard wide, which is 28% skill haste. It's pretty high rolling that. I see a lot of 20s, 22s, and some 24s, so 28's a good roll, but that's completely fine how it is. 29.5 armor on the knees is pretty good, so I'm keeping that as it is. So that's the 4-piece hard wide and the BTSUs. Let's quickly go up to the bag now. In the bag, you want to look for one that's Alps. You want 2 yellow attributes in the end, so it doesn't matter if you pick one up that's yellow and red or yellow and blue. As long as you've got a yellow in there, you can spec skill power or skill haste onto this. And then skilled and destructive is critical, so make sure you go for that. Some people do prefer perfect tech support. I've done the maths, and skilled does more damage over time than perfect tech support. So if you do want to run PvE missions, I'd recommend skilled over perfect tech support. And then look for a bag like this that has 2 yellow mod slots at the bottom, because you want to get even more yellows into your build. So another thing that I did, I used to have 46% skill haste on the bag. Instead, I've changed the bag and I've gone for one that had very basic skill haste, actually at 25%, and I've whacked on a massive 775 skill power armor, skill power attribute onto that. So why have I done this? Why did I change my skill haste? Why did I sacrifice it on my holster? Why did I sacrifice almost half of what I had in my bag? The big deal about this build is I wanted a skill build that not only had crazy explosive damage, but also heals. So as you saw from the information before you clicked on this video, I've got a lot of healing now. So as you saw in my holster a second ago, we've got a whopping 16,000 armor on kill here. So every time I kill an enemy, I get 16,000 armor. And on top of that, you see on the vest, I've got a blue mod slot. And on the BTSU gloves, I've got a blue mod slot, and on the knees, I've got a blue mod slot. So if we just go into those quickly, you'll see that I've got armor on kill, 4,300. On the gloves, it's a very similar story, armor on kill, 4,600, almost 4,700. And then lastly on the vest, we've also got 4,300. So armor on kill is pretty huge here. I'm getting well over 4,000 for each of these pieces, and I'm also getting 16,000 armor on kill for the holster. So when I go into a room, press R1 and my Seekers go out and annihilate everything in the room, I'm full armor. It's no deal. So this is like a really high explosive damage healing Seeker build. It's just, I'm having so much fun with it. But to do that, what I had to do, as I mentioned earlier on, is just sacrifice the skill haste on the holster and sacrifice some skill haste on the bag. Now the big question I had before I did this was I had to basically say, do I need that skill haste? And when I thought about it, I really didn't. You've got in rhythm on your gun, you've got skilled on your bag, you've got hard wide on your gear pieces, so you've got enough instant skill cooldown going on to not need the skill haste fully optimized. And the big question was, for the small marginal gain of skill haste, is it worth getting around 30,000 armor heal on kill instead of just having, I don't know, a few more seconds to wait on a Seeker? So for me, I definitely went for the armor on kill. I did sacrifice 1 yellow, so my build did used to be 16 yellows. Now it's not, now it's only 15. So it used to do 160% explosive damage, now it does 150% explosive damage for that's the percentage increase from the BTSU gloves. Now I've got 15 yellows, it's only 150% increase, but that 10% I think it's definitely a choice for me. I definitely prefer the armor on kill rather than that 10%. And of course, sadist on both guns, you want that because you do 30% extra damage to targets when they're caught up in this bleeder stinger hive. Now the stinger hive is quite simple. All you want to do is go for damage, charges and radius. So this makes sure that when you drop this, the radius is absolutely huge. There's loads of charges in there. I've got 16, 18 when I've got recharged from, you know, that skill power on the gun when I have full armor. And the damage there, it's a decent damage mod that really takes out the enemies very, very quickly in PvE. So those are the skills. Make sure that also you do go for the concussion grenade. It's hitting at well over 500,000, so that will definitely blow up a group of enemies if you're running low on anything else. But you do get a load of grenade launcher ammo when you're using this build, because you're getting loads of multi-kills, loads of explosive kills, so this grenade launcher ammo really does fill up very quickly. There's a couple more things I want to go into in this build, and then I'll head over and show you my PvP variant of it. So the last thing is the yellow utility mod slots. So I'm getting a lot of my skill power actually through the pieces on my gear. So for example, I've got 775 here, I've got a decent amount here, 543, and I've also got a decent amount here, 600. But I do have 15 in total in terms of utility slots. So let's look at the mask. We've got decent explosive damage on all pieces, so I've got 4.5 here. On the vest, I've got 4% explosive damage. On the holster, you can see I've got 4% explosive damage, 4.5% explosive damage. On the knees, I've got 4.5% explosive damage. On the gloves, I've got a couple of great ones. I've got 4.5% explosive damage and 4.5% explosive damage. And on the bag, I've got 5% explosive damage and 4.5% explosive damage. So all of these add up really nicely to make sure I'm packing one hell of a punch. If I show you what I'm talking about, let's go into the Seekers. The base damage on my Seekers is over 800,000. So that's before the BTSU gloves proc, and this is looking at 3 damage mods. If you want to, you can change one of those for +6. So for example, I've got 2 97% damage mods there. I could change the 93% damage mod for +6 mines, which is often what I do when I'm running missions, and it will sacrifice the base damage of the mines a little bit, but having 9 of them definitely is a lot better than having 3 that hit a little bit harder. So that's the setup there. It's pretty cool setup. I'll quickly show you the stats before I show you my PvP variant, but there you go. You can see just there I've got 105% explosive damage, so crazy amount of explosive damage. You do get a bonus from having explosive damage from each destructive, but everything else is just basically the utility protocol and all of those utility system slots I've got in my build. So that is my new loadout of my new skill build. It's insane when I see people running the old version that was very light on armor. You know, it was very squishy just for the sake of having 1 yellow more. Personally, I don't think it's worth it. I've been getting better numbers from this. I get faster clearances because I'm not getting injured and putting on armor packs as much. But let's head over to the PvP variant. So I've started playing a lot more PvP lately, and I did take this build into the dark zones, but I found that when a group of rogues were following me, I'd normally always go down. There's no way I could fight them, and even if I ran away, they'd shoot me in my back. My armor's so low that their builds would just shred through me. So, you know, it was good for farming until I needed to extract, and then suddenly I'd get ripped apart. So I thought there must be like a PvP variant of this build that I can put together. So what I came up with was something that looked like this. So what I've got here is a very similar setup. Not much has changed at all. The guns are still all the same, so I'm not going to talk about that. The pieces that have changed are the mask and the knees, and also the bag. They're the biggest pieces that changed. So on the mask, we don't need 55% damage to elites. We've sacrificed that. What we've sacrificed it for is extra skill power. We've got a little bit of health there. So you can notice on the left hand side, we've got 400,000 armor. So that's a decent amount of armor. Not only have I got enough armor here that if I need to run away from a group of agents, I can, but 400,000 armor is now at the stage where if I wanted to, I could run in and out of these agents very quickly, of course, dropping my seekers, dropping my hive, and I can become quite a problem for them. It's going to be very hard for them to hit me while I'm, strafing like that, running in and out of stuff. So it's definitely got the survivability that my PvE variant lacked. Now over onto my bag, I have a very similar bag to what I used to have, but instead of destructive, I've got hardened, so that gives me 15% bonus armor, and I've got 20% total armor on my bag here, so that's contributing significantly to my PvE build. On my knees, instead of going for the skill haste, I've gone for 12% total armor, so that helps as well. And then lastly, on my vest, I didn't need damage to elites anymore, so there's my destructive, which gives me extra damage as well. So I've got 30% total armor on there and 18,000 armor, so that contributes again to my total armor. And on my holster, I have got the 48% skill haste. If I wanted to, I could get some armor on kill, but with the PvP, I've left it like this because we're already at 14 yellows, so we're already sacrificing a couple of utility mod slots away from my PvE build how it used to be. I didn't want to go down to 13, and also the armor on kill I find in PvP isn't worth it as much as it is worth it in PvE, so I've kept the skill haste on there. You could roll if you want to a really high health just to keep you going, but personally I prefer the skill haste on my PvP build versus anything such as armor on kill or additional health. So this is very similar. For my hive, I've gone for a slightly different setup. I have more damage than charges, so I've gone for 2 damage mods and a radius instead of 1 damage mod, 1 charges and 1 radius mod. So each tick hits for about 30,000 damage. Now even if someone's got 100% hazard protection on, they still take 30,000 damage. So that's something to bear in mind, that even if someone doesn't get affected by your bleed status, but if they do get affected by your bleed status, then you're whacking 30% extra damage to them. And do remember that even if you're just holding the gun in your hand, the gun bonuses apply. So for example, with the LMGs you get 15% damage to targets out of cover, and with the assault rifle you get 29% damage to health, so this is effective against clutch builds. So do consider that whichever weapon you've got in your hand, when you use your seekers in your hive, the gun benefits carry over to your skills, so that's really nice. However, they do get nerfed a bit when you head into the dark zone, into conflict. So that is it, and the last thing I want to show, the grenade of course still hitting over 500,000, is the stats page. So the stats here, explosive damage, 105% explosive damage, you can see right at the bottom here. So it's still a very, very decent amount of explosive damage considering it's got 400,000 armor and a decent amount of yellows in the build. So this is great fun to play with. In the PvP version of it, you can still clear landmarks very quickly. You just change one of these seeker mods to a +6 and you can clear landmarks very quickly. You can get loads of DC credits in the occupied dark zone, and if you are running with a squad, you can play with this build and kind of be middle of the road. You don't need to be on the back line. I wouldn't recommend you go on the front line, but definitely play in that mid role where you can just throw seekers over the top, throw the hive down, set some bleeding effect, and whoever's affected by the hive, you can just gun into them with Sadist and do extra damage onto them. But keep on the move. 400,000 armor is good. It's definitely not the highest I've seen. There's a lot of 500 and even 600,000 armors out there, so do keep moving, but drop those skills and just attack anyone that's affected by your bleed status, but keep it moving and keep quick, and move in and out of objects and keep safe. So those are my 2 builds, my PvE and my PvP hardwired builds. I really hope you've enjoyed them. I've been having so much fun with these, but let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.
Everybody asked me how I know. I smiled at them and said, "You told me so."